From the Rotary Club of Halifax, Harbourside, member Wendy Fraser.
I'd just say that I'm actually not from the Rotary. I'm from Hospice Halifax. The Rotary's been working hard to support us in our capital campaign, and that's how we've joined together in this event. So I'm going to just start out I'm telling you a little bit about hospice and why it's important. It's a hard thing to describe because Nova Scotia doesn't have a hospice, so you don't know what you don't know. And so I try and figure out good ways to describe it and find that the easiest is to tell you about my own experience. So 4 years ago, my dad, who was an entrepreneur, after a couple of years of trying to sell his business, finally sold his business and retired at 71. About a month after he retired, he was trying to keep himself busy washing my stepmother's car, and he had a massive stroke. From that point, the world went pretty crazy. He was in Montreal at the time, and I flew down there. The rest of my family was in Montreal, and it became apparent quickly he wasn't going to survive the stroke. But he was going to live a few more days likely. And we were in a hospital. While he wasn't very conscious, he was still clearly uncomfortable. It was really not a nice place for him to be in his final days. It wasn't a place I wanted to see him be. And so we worked hard to try and move him to a hospice in Montreal. What ended up happening was he was sent to another hospital near the hospice. And they thought they had a bed for him, so he went to that hospital with my brother in tow, and arrived at the Emerge to find there were no beds. And so he was left in the hallway on a gurney. And my brother spent the night lying under the gurney because he couldn't bear to have my father left like that when he was dying. I'm sad to say that if it was Nova Scotia, that's pretty much where the story would end. If my dad lived here, he might get into an acute care bed. If he was very, very lucky, he might get a palliative care bed, but very unlikely. And we would have kind of fought out those last days trying to make sure that he had care and comfort. Instead, what happened was after about 12 hours of kind of, fighting for his comfort, because realistically, he's the dying guy on the ward. They're trying to heal people in hospital. So that's not the person who gets the most focus. He was sent over to the hospice. And we were greeted by a volunteer at hospice. And I'm telling you this in part because what I'm going to talk about tonight is our need to have a strong volunteer base. And that's really what I'm going to be asking your help for. A volunteer met us at the door. We're stressed out, 3 days of hospital rushing around. And she says to me, "What kind of music does your dad like?" So all of a sudden we're not running around trying to get him medication, we're talking about music. I made the mistake, I don't like this thing, so I'm coming out a little bit. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, let me know. I made the mistake of, instead of saying, my dad was a bit of a madman of his time, and he liked a lot of great music. He liked Frank Sinatra, he liked swing, but he also liked bagpipe music. And that was what blurted out of my mouth, was, he likes bagpipe music. And she said, "That's fantastic. My daughter's a master piper. She volunteers here too. She'll come in and play for him tomorrow." And the next day, the day before my dad died, there were 15 of us in the room. It was about 500 square feet with a living room, a walkout to a gorgeous yard, a little kitchenette, a place for my stepmother to sleep. And 15 of us sat there and listened to her pipe with his dog lying next to him in his bed. And I'm not sure if he was smiling, but I feel like he was smiling. What was more important was, as a family, the relief that we felt to know that he was dying in a place that he deserved to die in a good place. We are in the process and just about to do the same thing here. There are 80 hospices across Canada. There are 0 hospices in Nova Scotia. Aside from the fact that it's not a great place to die in hospital, we can't afford to continue to have people to die in hospital. It costs $1,100 a day for somebody to die in an acute care bed and $475 to die in hospice. That's a savings to us in 1 year of $7.3 million. So we're about to launch a capital campaign. We're very excited. We're negotiating on land in the South End that is going to be a spectacular place for people to end their days. And I'm not coming to you about that because that would be the capital campaign. What I'm coming to you about is volunteers. Hospice runs that well and with that much care because it's in community, by community, and for community. The hospice in Ottawa has 160 active volunteers. They all need to be trained. They need to learn how to work with people who are sick and dying. They need to work with families. I'm hoping that this money will help us to recruit and build that volunteer base so when that hospice opens in 2017, we'll be ready to go.